What's up everybody, I'm Sparrowcus. Welcome to yet another GAGAS review, and today we're going to look at The Last Guardian, a game that many people were excited about, and well, me included. I am very excited to make a review on this game, which is the newest child of Fumito Ueda and his team, which were also known for the titles Ico and especially Shadow of the Colossus, which is also known in the West. Now, the development for The Last Guardian started over 9 years ago, and it was probably for the most time in some sort of development hell, and it had some production switches from one team to the other, and also went from PlayStation 3 to PlayStation 4, but there must have been also a lot of other reasons for that to be 9 years, because this time period gets even more ridiculous if you hear that the initial thought behind The Last Guardian was to create something good in a very short time. Oh, the irony. Alright, let's forget about the past, let's think about what we have today. And today we have two masterpieces from Team Ico, which is basically now Gen Design, and they created Ico and Shadow of the Colossus, which is often referred to as really great examples for art in video games. That is why so many were excited for The Last Guardian, and me included. So the question I have for this game in this GAGAS review: did Sony and Fumito Ueda manage to bring some new magic, some new art to life in form of a video game, or did the development hell and all these switches and production issues cause this game to be another overhyped bullcrap? Let's find out in this GAGAS review. Oh, and if you like this video, don't forget to subscribe to stay up to date with the new standard in gaming reviews. Graphics. Alright, so in the graphics we can clearly see the development has passed for over 9 years, because the textures, especially over there, are, well, let's say, bad for today's standards. Now sure, not everything is about graphics itself, and I have to admit, Trico the beast or animal, he looks really amazing, and this is also probably the reason why the rest of the game is not looking so great, because there's a physics engine working in this game all the time, so every feather of Trico and the hair of the little boy, if they're going through the wind, that is the wind moving the hair and the feathers. And also when Trico eats some barrels, all that gets calculated by the physics engine, and even in cutscenes that physics engine is still working in real time, which makes the game look a lot more realistic, even though at times it may also look a bit funny because, well, it doesn't really work out as great. Now we have a good looking Trico and some really good physics engine at work, but the rest of the game is not looking that super great for today's standards. As I said, the textures are not great. People have some sort of a cell shader optic, which is probably mostly there to cover up some bad aliasing, even though this is also some sort of an art design that they also used in the previous kind of titles, which just belongs to the art style. But there's the thing, we have a game that looks more like, you know, the end of the last generation, which is not so bad, but still could be a lot better. And still, I tested this on a PlayStation Pro, I still had a couple of times some frame drops below 30 FPS. Now this was barely an issue, but if this happens already on the PlayStation Pro, I have read also that this is more apparent on the normal PlayStation. And seriously, a game that, sure, admittedly it has a really great physics engine, but the graphics are not that over the top, and it is a console exclusive title, developed also by the people who also developed the console. Having these sort of technical issues with the game after 9 years and delays and delays and delays and delays, that is, in my point of view, far from good and, well, let's say barely acceptable. Audio. Now, the audio is something that I have not expected like that at all. If we talk about music, there is, I think, only 20 minutes of original soundtrack, and the game lasts for about 9 hours. So I think you get the feeling on how much music you will get while playing it. It's very, very rare on occasions, but when it happens, it is magical, on point. Now, I would have liked it if there would be more music, but the absence also gives you the feeling, it adds to the feeling that you are alone and you're trying to escape this area where you're in, and all you have is just this giant beast walking around and being clumsy as fuck and just growling something through the holes, and you're just crying for him and that's it. Now, while on the other hand, we have some voiceovers, which is mostly the boy screaming for the name for Trico and calling him and giving him commands. Also, we have a man, which is the older boy, telling the story and giving you some background information. Other than that, we also have the sound effects, of course, and they are on point. It's all great, always adding to the situation, giving you some information about the area and so on, but mostly it's just quiet and you just hear the taps of the boy, of the footprints of his naked feet clashing against the naked stone, and the same goes for the walking sounds of Trico. So audio-wise, there is not really much to go for, but when it is normally good, if not great. Gameplay. Alright, in times where we have so many games that just use every button on a controller twice, if not even 3 times, then you have to click it, you have to double click it, you have to hold it, and so on. The funny thing about The Last Guardian is the first thing I noticed when I looked at the controller is you don't need half of the buttons on the controller, which is so rare today, especially on a title that is so big. And with big, I mean, of course, marketing-wise and how well it is known in the gaming community. So in The Last Guardian, you control a little boy who is trapped inside of a valley with some castle or some sort of a structure, and he tries to escape it, and for that he has to befriend a little teeny tiny monster named Trico. Well, how this exactly works I will tell in the story section, but you can at some point also give more or less commands to Trico. You can tell him to jump, you can tell him to walk someplace, to destroy something, to smash something, and so on. Well, the boy is not completely incapable. He can jump and climb stuff, which is basically it, but that is for the most time already actually enough. It has some sort of a Tomb Raider or Uncharted feeling if you play the game, and then you have to figure out a way to get there, to get from A to B. And in general, this is how the game works. Every time you just get to some new place, you think, all right, what do I have to do now to get ahead? How can I progress the game? And that is really from minute to minute, you think that again. This can, to be honest, become a little bit of frustrating because you don't really have a break. So unless you're super smart and figure out a way every time, oh yeah, you have to do this, then you have to do that, and you have to do this, and you advance in a fast pace, then it's fine. But for me it was, I had to think and find ways to advance, and after 1 or 2 minutes I found a way to do it, and the moment I got to the next area, I already had to think, alright, what do I have to do now? I don't see a way out. There was almost never a break, and you always have to try and find a way to get through the levels. But this is not really much of a complaint, just a thing to be wary about, because I would never complain about a game that gives you a challenge over and over and over again. If I would like to complain about one thing, well, let's say 2 things about The Last Guardian, that would be the camera, which is awful at times. Sometimes, sure, the camera shows and points to some directions where you have to look at it, but mostly it is only free to you in a horizontal area. But if you want to look around a bit more, it gets somehow clumsy and really hard to navigate, often even stupid, so that you miss a couple of events that Trico is doing or the boy is even doing, because the camera is just a mess. And because the camera is not really good, you cannot precisely control the boy in some situations, which will lead to some death or some stupid situations. Another thing that is quite annoying, that is Trico itself. That beast can get on your nerves, seriously. Now, I get it. This is part of the game. You are trying to communicate with an animal that you're building a bond over time, and the more you get to know it, and it to know you, you have, let's say, better quote-unquote control over it, and the animal just does not always understand what you want from it. So almost every time if you command Trico to do something, it will take some time for Trico to realize what you want, to position himself and do it. Sometimes it does the wrong thing first or something like that. That is completely fine. It is great that this is in the game and adds to the atmosphere. Awesome stuff, you just have to be a bit patient. But this becomes an issue if you tell Trico over and over and over and over again what to do, and he just doesn't do it. And the moment you get off him, this happened to me a couple of times, as soon as you get off him, he does that thing. He climbs on that and jumps on, and you just sit there and think just like, fuck you, seriously. But other than that, the gameplay is just fine. It's very slow paced because, as I said, you have to look around the area, find out what you can climb on, or find out what Trico can climb on, and then command him to do so, and that might take a while, especially if he becomes really stubborn. But that is not really stubborn, that's more like stupid AI, which is covered by the whole game mechanics that you're playing with an animal who cannot understand what you're saying immediately, but still it stays at some point some stupid AI. But overall, it is completely unique gameplay, something that I don't really remember that we have something like that at all. And that brings us to Amusement. And man, The Last Guardian is a great, really great example for where, all the other aspects are some kind of weird or not over the top, but the amusement is just great and one of a kind. I mean, the graphics are not really great and we have some technical issues which are, in my opinion, for a console exclusive game barely acceptable. That is, in my opinion, even worse than the gameplay issues that we have with the camera and sometimes stupid Trico. Other than that, we have an audio which is often not really existent, but it always adds to the atmosphere. But all that almost doesn't matter because we are controlling a boy that finds himself in some area that he doesn't know where he is and he doesn't know where he's going, and all he has is this animal and he has to grow a bond with it, and of course he has to work together with Trico to go ahead, and also vice versa. So all in all, the amusement in this game is not that you're having a blast, like laughing your ass off or having fun running people over or shooting people left and right and so on. No, this is more about the emotion, the emotional roller coaster that you have going on while you're playing the game, and that is all the time. You have the moment from, oh yeah, I reached the next location, and then, okay, damn it, how do I advance? Or things that happen in the story where you don't really know what's going on, and then you figure it out, and then you again think, what is happening? Things like that. This game is more about the emotions that it creates with its unique gameplay and story. And that brings us to the story. And I know many people are very cautious about hearing anything about the story in The Last Guardian. So as always, you can skip ahead by clicking on the time that is displayed right now, or just click on the link in the description. But of course, I will try to spoil as little as possible about the story and not tell too much, because I already said that the game is about 9 hours long, depending on how smart or stupid you and Trico is playing through the game. But there's also, for example, a golden, I think, trophy for beating it in 5.5 hours, something like that. So that is possible as well. So the whole story is actually a tale version of this boy that we're playing is telling to the player. So the boy wakes up in a cave together with the beast, Trico. And at first they are really reluctant to each other, and they don't know what to do with each other and what they're doing to each other. They're two both more frightened at each other, then they get to know each other a little bit, and then they continue. Now, of course, the more you advance through the game, Trico and the boy develop a deeper bond. And to be honest, I cannot really say much more about the story. Story-wise, there isn't really that much. Now, that is nothing new. After Ico and Shadow of the Colossus, there was the same thing there. There was not really much in the story. And of course, the little that is there in the game would be a huge spoiler for a review, so I'm not going to talk about that. Just that the story is good, if not even great overall. But the story is not about the story itself. It never was. It was, as I said, to create something good in a short time. Well, let's forget the short time. Let's focus on to create something good, and that is to create emotions. And the game does this really well, which makes it even more one of a kind, because we already have a lot of movies and books and video games with plots that are branching out in all directions or have some sort of twists in it or something else. We have plenty of that, but a story that is condensed to, well, let's say the minimum, but gives you an extract of emotions that you can drink of and have plenty of them just going up and down all the time while you're playing the game. That is just one of a kind and just great stuff. Alright, it is time for the verdict. And well, at the beginning of this review, I asked if Fumito Ueda, his team and Sony managed to create some new art in video game form, or if they failed after so much time of development. And the answer is quite clear to me. Yes, they created art, one-of-a-kind gameplay, one-of-a-kind story, one-of-a-kind emotions. Emotions that are really hard to develop in a movie or series. It's more possible in a book, I would say, but in a game, something like that I have not experienced. This is art in its pure form. And well, there we have already the really big reason why you should buy this game. It's art, one of a kind. I said it a couple of times. If you're looking for something like that, go buy it. And I think The Last Guardian is a really good example on why I do not make any ratings of video games, because, well, we're all friends here, right? So if you ask me, should you buy the game, I would say clearly yes and no. I would suggest that you try to find a way to play this game at least once in your lifetime, but I could not everybody recommend to buy this game at full price, because 9 hours are not that much, and after these 9 hours there is nothing else to do. The only thing that you can do in this game is to play the story. There's nothing else to find really, or anything different to do. It's always the same, so it's like you're watching a 9-hour movie. So if it's worth full price for you, that is for you to decide, and I hope this review helps you with that. But other than that, I think that even if you don't own a PS4, somehow get your hands on it and on this game, at least for, well, a weekend or so you can play the game. This is a literal must-have. So even now I also will name you some reasons to skip it. In my personal preference, I would more say that this is the more reasons you have standing on the skip it side, the more the price should be down before you actually buy it or rent it or whatever. And one of the things I think is what I mentioned already. We have a fairly short story, and this game doesn't really offer any replayability. So if you restart the game, there's nothing new that you could really discover or any other ways to solve the puzzles. The other thing is that the game is not technically the way it should be, especially on the normal PS4. And also, this is a story-driven single-player game, so don't expect anything else than the 9 hours of gameplay. And the other thing is, well, if you buy this game for the story, you need to be aware that there is not actually that much of a story. It's more about emotions. So if you're expecting some big ass story with lots of twists and oh my goodness, I did not expect that in 1,000 years and so on, blah blah blah, well, it's not that these moments are not there completely, but story-wise there isn't really much. It's mostly emotions. So if you are dead inside, you should probably also not really buy this game. Just, get this game somehow temporarily to find out that you are dead inside, indeed. And the final thing why you should skip the game, or at least play this game at a very low price, is, well, that if you are kinda impatient and you think that cats are dicks for being so lazy bastards and they're not doing what you're doing. Because this is what's going to happen in The Last of Us. Trico is a mixture of different animals, but he's mostly a freaking cat. Even though I am a bird, I personally like cats, yet they are still assholes. So if you don't have the nerve to wait and order around Trico and to wait for him to do things, if you get freaked out by that too much, well, then this game is not really that enjoyable for you than it might be for others. And while these technical issues and the issues with the AI of Trico, well, I do not expect them to be resolved anytime in the future, not even in the far future, because this game was in development for such a long time, console exclusive, and they did not get the shit straight. So I do not expect that to get any better in any sort of future. Maybe in a parallel universe where those beasts like Trico really exist, but I don't really expect improvements in the future. Alright, so this is the GAGAS review for The Last Guardian. I hope that it helped you to decide if this is a game for you or not, and, well, that you should play it at some point in your life, because this game is already an instant classic, period. Of course, if this review helped you and you like this video, don't forget to press the like button down below. If you're not subscribed yet to our little channel here, do so to stay up to date with the newest GAGAS review. And if you go ahead to share this video to people who like to know more about The Last Guardian, I'm pretty sure they will appreciate that, and so will I, for supporting the channel so much. So thank you guys for watching, and now please, if you excuse me, I have to go to the local pet store, buy every kind of animal that is there, extract their spine fluid, and create some new species.